السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So in our lecture yesterday, in part one, we began by giving two similitudes or two parables or two verses which in the Quran mention how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sends down the rain which is pure and purifying for the benefit of mankind. And in a similar way, Allah sends down wahi, revelation. And this revelation gives life to the hearts. So the rain gives life to the bodies, and the revelation gives life to the hearts. And based upon this, we set the context for the lecture, which is to say that just as if a stream is polluted by people with evil intentions or even sincere intentions, and they don't realize what they are doing, that this brings harm to the bodies of men. And in a similar way, by way of the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when people enter into the religion, the wahi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that which is not from it, of ideas, beliefs, practices, methodologies, principles, and so on and so forth, then just like toxins have an effect upon the body, in a similar way, thoughts, principles, ideas, methodologies, they have an effect upon the hearts and the minds and the actions of people, like for like. There's no difference. So once we established that, we said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His qadr, He decreed for there to be khilaf, for there to be differing amongst mankind, just like He decreed Iblis and alcohol and the khinzir and many other harmful things, but which He is displeased with, He dislikes. And so khilaf is one of those such things, and He decreed it to exist in the creation amongst mankind for a wisdom amongst the wisdoms, and that from those wisdoms is so that by way of this khilaf, by way of this differing which He decreed, the muttabi', the one who makes ittiba', is separated from the mubtadi', from the one who makes ibtida'. And so that the one for whom Allah has written mercy, rahmah, that he will receive Allah's mercy. And the one for whom is Allah's anger, he will receive Allah's anger by way of this, the khilaf. This is one of those means, from the ways and means, and it is from qadar, from al-qada wal-qadar. And then after this we mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ, that when he was sent with his message, he was sent to a people who were divided, the Arabs. They were divided in their deities. They worshipped different deities, Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, Al-Hubal. And each of them, they were divided in their deen. They were divided in their dunya. And so the Messenger of Allah, he came and he united the people upon Tawheed. And so he stood, as we mentioned in the ayah, فَاسْدَعْ بِمَا أُمِرْتَ. Stand firm with what you have been commanded. So all the way through his message, despite all of the hardships, difficulties, oppression, tyranny, he stood firm until certainty came to him. Then came Abu Bakr, then came Umar, then came Uthman, then came Ali radiallahu anhum. And they followed the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu, because each one of them, they stood to defend the religion in their own particular way. Abu Bakr against the murtaddun. Umar, he was so strong in the face of falsehood that he was like a solid door. No tribulations came in the time of Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. And he dealt with people like Subayh. Subayh was the one who was going around creating doubts in the minds of people, asking about some of the ambiguous verses of the Quran. So he punished him and put an end to that tribulation. So there was no real bid'ah, tribulation, fitan, which occurred in the time of Umar bin al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu, because of his strength and his standing, his sada' bil haqq, for the truth. But when he was assassinated, then came Uthman, and in the time of Uthman, the movements began to start, the Sab'iyya, and other than them, in the name of revolution and justice. And so as a result of that, the tribulations came of the Khawarij, the Rafidah, and, but each of them, they did what they did, and they stood in the face of the truth. Ali bin Abi Talib, likewise, radiallahu anhu. So the Sahaba, the Khulafa al-Rashidun, they followed the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in standing against khilaf, opposition to the truth, and making sada', standing firm. After them, the rest of the Sahaba, as we shall see from them, Ibn Umar and Ibn Abbas, there's some narrations that are going to come, inshallah, specifically. But in general, the Sahaba followed the Sunnah of the rightly guided Khulafa. And then the Tabi'een followed the Sunnah of the Sahaba, because they are the ones who stood against the Murji'ah when they appeared right at the end of the time of the Sahaba, and the Ahlul Kalam from the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila and other than them. So all of them, they established the Sunnah, and they countered the qadr of Allah, something which Allah decreed, with something that Allah legislated. Right? So from Allah's qadr is khilaf, but Allah legislated that it be removed. So we as people of Sunnah, we believe there's no clash, there's no contradiction between al-qadr and ash-shara'. Right? There's no contradiction between what Allah decrees and what Allah legislates. If you understand this, then the shubuhat of the qadariyah will be removed, because this is one of their fundamental problems. They say that Allah commands something which He decrees its opposite. How does that make sense? But this is because they are using their aql. Allah, from His qadr, He decrees things for a wisdom and a purpose and an end. And it is everything which happens is by way of al-qada wal-qadr. We believe in the ways and the means. And so the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, what they did was that they made this khilaf known to the people, that this khilaf opposes the book and the sunnah, and they refuted it. And so this was the essence of the lecture yesterday. We established this foundation, and we said for that reason, when you look at this conference and everything in this conference and all of the lecture titles in this conference, you can see it all revolves around the issue of how we acquire knowledge and how we convey the knowledge. So, starting with part 2 then, I will continue the point that we said, that concealing the khilaf, pretending there is no differing, pretending there is no opposition to the book and the sunnah, which is the way of the jama'at of Hizbiyah, the politicians and other than them, and to make it appear as if we are united and we are one and our heart is together. This is from the way of those upon whom is Allah's anger. This is from their way. It is from the way of the people of Allah's ghadab, anger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned, تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. You think them to be together, all together, but their hearts are diverse. They are different. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. This is because they are a people who do not understand. They don't have aql. They don't use the aql. Because if they had reason, intelligence, they would have realized that to remove the khilaf is to become united. To pretend there is no khilaf is deceiving yourself. Where is the aql when you deceive yourself? And so therefore, when you continue to pretend that you are united, and then when a trial comes and a tribulation comes, what happens? What happens is what is mentioned by Allah in the Quran, that the foundations are pulled from underneath and the ceiling crashes from on top. When you continue to pretend, make a pretense of unity and love and friendship, when in reality there isn't any. There is separation in the hearts. Each person is pursuing his own interests, his own goals, his own desires. And so this is from the way of those upon whom is Allah's anger. So therefore, all of those calls, those da'awat that we see which are present today, who are deceiving the people, and they are making them think that we need to push the differences to one side, then this is from the ways that lead to destruction. It leads to eventual destruction. And we see that the Bani Israel were cursed by their prophets for this very trait and this very characteristic. Not refuting the opposition, concealing the khilaf from the people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, لُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى لِسَانِ دَاوُودَ وَعِيسَى بْنِ مَرْيَمَ ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَنْ مُنْكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. Cursed were those who disbelieved from the Bani Israel upon the tongue of Dawood and Isa ibn Maryam. This is because they disobeyed and they used to transgress, and they would not mutually enjoin the munkar, the evil that they fell into. How evil was it that they used to do? So this khilaf, this concealing the khilaf, which brings about the ghadab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which brings about the curses upon a people. Concealing this khilaf is something that as we mentioned yesterday with a brief history, that in the 20th century, or the 19th century in fact, this principle came that was never ever known in history. If you go back in history, even amongst the sects, the Khawarij refute other than them. The Qadariyya refute other than them. The Murjiya refute. Everyone's refuting everybody else. Ahlul Sunnah refute upon the book and the Sunnah. But the Khawarij refute, the Murjiya refute, the Jahmiyya refute, the Batiniyya do what they do. Everyone is refuting each other. But never in the history of Islam did there arise certain principles in which the very principle of refutation is removed and a pretense is made that there is no khilaf, or that we push the khilaf to one side. Never in history, except until the 19th century and the 20th century. And the men who were behind this falsehood, Jamaluddin al-Afghani, who is really an Iranian, Rafidi, Batini, Shi'i, pretending to be an Afghani. And so he brought this principle. He was connected to the Baha'i, the Baha'i movement that were trying to establish unity of religions. All religions are the same. All lead, different paths leading to the same, to the same destination. And so this principle came eventually to Hassan al-Banna. And Hassan al-Banna, when you look at his message, you see that he was trying to unite the Rafida, the Shia, with the Sunnah, and even with the Nasara. And so he established his call upon this principle. And his movement, the Ikhwan, is nothing but a movement through which the unity of religions is intended. This is the vehicle of Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun. It is simply a vehicle to push the Muslims towards Wahdatul Adyan. Not just Wahdatul Madahib, but Wahdatul Adyan. This is the vehicle that is intended. So on account of these movements, these principles appeared that were never known in history. That we cooperate upon that which we agree, and we pardon each other in that which we disagree. So the very principle of refuting and standing for the truth that we saw is a sunnah established by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, established by the Khulafa, established by the Sahaba, established by the Tabi'een, established by the Tabi'een, and so on and so forth, right through history, that this now became overturned. As we said yesterday, in the name of wasatiyya, moderation, in the name of al-adl, justice, in the name of al-insaf, again justice, and balance. So the scales were turned the other way around, and so the sunnah was basically, it was basically removed. So, repelling khilaf is wajib, is an obligation. Refuting the opposer who contradicts the sunnah is wajib, and it is a compassion and a mercy to the people. It is rahmah to the people. This is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He sent the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, He described him, He said, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. The messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was sent. Allah says, there has come to you a messenger from amongst your own selves. It grieves him that you should suffer. Meaning it grieved the messenger. He felt the pain that the people, his companions and his ummah should suffer. It grieved him. And he is eager. Harisun alaykum. He's eager for you, upon you. And with the believers, he is compassionate and he is merciful. From the signs of the mercy, compassion, and the concern and the grief which he felt for his nation is that he informed them of every single good that he knew for them that would lead them to paradise. And he warned them from every single evil that he knew that would distance them from paradise. In fact, as he himself said, alayhi salatu wasalam, مَا تَرَكْتُ شَيْئًا يُقَرِّبُكُم مِّنَ الْجَنَّةِ وَيُبَاعِدُكُم عَنِ النَّارِ إِلَّا أَمَرْتُكُم بِهِ وَمَا يُقَرِّبُكُم مِّنَ النَّارِ وَيُبَاعِدُكُم عَنِ الْجَنَّةِ إِلَّا نَهَيْتُكُم عَنْهُ. As we see in a number of narrations. I have not left anything which brings you closer to paradise and distances you from hellfire except that I have commanded you with it. And I have not forbidden, and there is nothing which brings you closer to hellfire and distances you from paradise except that I have prohibited you from it. This is from his ra'fah, from his compassion, from his rahmah, his mercy, from his hirs for his ummah, and for his how hard it is upon him to see harm upon his ummah. This is where it comes from. And so therefore, when we are speaking of ar-raddu ala al-mukhalif, ar-raddu ala al-mubtadi', refuting the opposer, refuting the innovator, this is from the same line. It is from the same angle, that this is mercy and compassion to the Muslimin. Why? Because from the greatest of things that the Messenger of Allah he warned from, of the evils which he knew for his ummah, was the issue of innovation, misguiding innovations. These are innovations which are entered into the religion, made to resemble the religion by which a person believes or thinks he's getting closer to Allah, and it is made to resemble the Sharia. The Messenger he said, وَشَرُّ الْأُمُورِ مُحْدَثَاتُهَا وَكُلَّ مُحْدَثَةٍ بِدْعَةٍ وَكُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ وَكُلَّ ضَلَالَةٍ فِي النَّارِ. The worst of affairs are the newly invented matters. Every newly invented matter is an innovation. Every innovation is misguidance. Likewise, he warned of a people who will come at the end of time telling lies, saying things you never heard before. سَيَكُونُ فِي آخِرِ أُمَّتِي نَاسٌ يُحَدِّثُونَكُمْ بِمَا لَمْ تَسْمَعُوا أَنْتُمْ وَلَا آبَاؤُكُمْ فَإِيَّاكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ. There will be at the end of time in my nation a people who will narrate to you, inform you of things which you have never heard. Neither you nor your forefathers. So beware of them. Take caution against them, beware of them. Likewise, he mentioned about those who will come and they will start speaking about the mutashabihat, the ambiguous verses of the Quran. And he mentioned that ayah in Surah Ali Imran about the muhkam verses and the mutashabihat. He mentioned that ayah. And then he said, فَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ يَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ سَمَّ اللَّهُ فَاحْذَرُوهُمْ. That when you come and see these people who follow the ambiguous, then they are the ones whom Allah has mentioned, so beware of them. Now these are just a small number of texts, and in the short time that we don't have time to go through many, but you get the point that the Messenger of Allah, the point is this, that it is from the rahmah and the ra'fa and the hirs of the Messenger of Allah that he informed his nation of tafarruq, ikhtilaf, bid'ah, hawa, following the mutashabih. All of these things the Messenger mentioned, and it is from his mercy, compassion for his ummah. And it is in this context that this obligation of refuting the mukhalif, refuting the opposite to the sunnah, it is from this context that it should be understood. There are many evidences in the Quran of turning away from falsehood. By way of example, the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَقَدْ نَزَّلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الْكِتَابِ أَنْ إِذَا سَمِعْتُمْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ يُكَفَّرُ بِهَا وَيُسْتَحْزَأُ بِهَا فَلَا تَقْعَدُوا مَعَهُمْ حَتَّى يَخُوضُوا فِي حَدِيثٍ غَيْرِهِ إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا مِثْلُهُمْ. That indeed it has been revealed in the book upon you, when you hear the verses of Allah being disbelieved in and being mocked, that you do not sit with them until they turn to another speech other than it. Otherwise you are exactly like them. You're just like them. We see that At-Tabari, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned about this ayah. وَفِي هَذِهِ الْآيَةِ in this ayah is a clear indication of not sitting with the people of batil, of every type of innovators and sinners, and when they start disputing in their falsehood. So, this is just one evidence. There are many, many evidences. We don't have the time because of the shortage of time. But the point here is that the Sahaba understood this very clearly, that khilaf is evil and it has to be repelled. And so we already established from the four khulafa how each of them stood in the face of batil. Now let's see how some of the other Sahaba, how they understood this, and likewise stood in the face of falsehood and refuted falsehood and refuted the opposers to the sunnah. The famous example of Ibn Umar, when a group of people came, two men came from Iraq, and they'd heard some people of knowledge, people who had knowledge, speaking about issues to do with qadar. And so they became unsure. So they came to the people of knowledge. They traveled and they came to Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu. And they informed him about the things that they heard. So he told them, what did he say to them? He said, he spoke ill of them. And he said, when you meet them, فَإِذَا لَقِيتَ أُولَٰئِكَ فَأَخْبِرْهُمْ أَنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنْهُمْ وَأَنَّهُمْ بُرَآءُ مِنِّي. When you meet them, meaning when you go back and you meet them now, tell them that I'm free of them. I have nothing to do with them. And they are free of me. This is Ibn Umar standing in the face of falsehood, following the sunnah of those who came before him from the khulafa. Likewise, Ata, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, I came to Ibn Abbas, radiyallahu anhuma, and whilst he was taking some water of Zamzam, and Zamzam had basically made the bottom of his thobe, it had made his thobe wet, and he was, attending to that. And so I came to him and I said, قَدْ تُكَلِّمَ فِي الْقَدَرِ. قَدْ تُكَلِّمَ فِي الْقَدَرِ. What did he say? He said, speech about Al-Qadr has taken place. Now what is he referring to? Why did he come and mention this to Ibn Abbas? Because we know from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu that there will appear a people known as the Qadariyah, and that they are the Magians of this ummah. And we know that the Messenger forbade any speech from Al-Qadr, because the speech, it surfaced amongst the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, but the shubha was clarified, and he prohibited delving in Al-Qadr. But he mentioned that it would occur. So amongst the Sahaba was an understanding and an awareness that at some point in time, Al-Qadr will be spoken of. So he came, and when it happened, he came to inform from the most knowledgeable of the companions. And he said to him, قَدْ تُكَلِّمَ fil qadar. Qadar has been spoken of. So Ibn Abbas, he said to him, أَوَقَدْ فَعَلُوهَا, to verify, he says, have they indeed done this? Have they indeed spoken about al-qadr? And Ata said, Na'am. He said, yes. So then, look at what Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu said. And remember what we said at the very beginning of the lecture yesterday. When we mentioned the ayah in the Quran, وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبُّكَ. They will never cease to differ except those upon whom is Allah's mercy. And remember the tafsir of this ayah, what it means. That Allah created a people for khilaf, so that they would, be people of khilaf and meet His anger. And Allah created a people for unity and rahmah, so that they would be people of rahmah and be people of paradise. Right? So in other words, we are connecting between Allah decreeing khilaf from His qadar, so that it is a means through which His prior knowledge is fulfilled. Right? Meaning of those who are deemed to go to paradise will go paradise, and those who are deemed to go to hell will go to hellfire. So look at what Ibn Abbas said. Look at the answer of Ibn Abbas. He said, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا نَزَلَتْ هَذِهِ الْآيَةِ إِلَّا فِيهِمْ. He said, by Allah, this ayah, the one he's going to mention, was not revealed except upon them. And then he mentioned the ayah, ذُوقُوا مَسَّ سَقَرْ ذُوقُوا مَسَّ سَقَرْ إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. So he quoted this ayah. In this ayah, Allah says, taste the touch of saqar, of the hellfire. Taste it. Indeed, everything we have created with qadar. As if to say that these people, the Qadariyah, who have spoken about al-qadar, let them taste the saqar. Now, because of their opposition, because of their deviation, indeed, everything we have created with qadar. Then he said, أولئك شرار هذه الأمة لا تعودوا مرضاهم ولا تصلوا على موتاهم إن أريتني أحدهم فقعت عينيه بأصبعي هاتين. He said, they are the most evil of this ummah. Do not visit their sick, nor pray over their dead. If you showed me one of them, then I would have poked his two eyes with these two fingers of mine. This is Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma. So there are in fact many lessons in this statement. Many lessons in this statement. For example, the fact that the Sahaba understood Al-Qadr does not contradict Ash-Shara'. What Allah decrees does not contradict what He commands. Ibn Abbas understands that khilaf is qadari. Allah decreed it to occur. They knew that people are going to speak about Al-Qadr. When it took place, they followed the Shara'. They followed the revelation which Allah commanded, which is to oppose the khilaf, to refute the khilaf, to refute the opposer, to warn the ummah from them. And so, from this, we establish then that the action of the khulafa, the action of the Sahaba like Ibn Umar and Ibn Abbas, as you see in this narration, that all of this is from the ra'fa, from the mercy, from the rahmah, from the mercy that is shown to the ummah out of concern for the ummah. This now leads us to the tabi'een, or the salaf who came afterwards. And so we'll go to the statement of Abdurrahman bin Amr al-Awza'i rahimahullah ta'ala. As you can imagine, there are many statements, there are many examples that can be given from the imams of the tabi'een, but this is just to give glimpses to establish this principle. And so he will mention a beautiful statement from al-Awza'i to show that this sunnah established by the messenger and the khulafa and the sahaba and the tabi'een was inherited by these imams. So here now listen to the beautiful words of Imam al-Awza'i rahimahullah ta'ala. He died 157 Hijrah. He says, He says, this is narrated in Tarikh Dimashq, and so he says, ittaqullaha ma'shar al-muslimin. Fear Allah, O gathering of the Muslims. وَاقْبَلُوا نُصْحَ النَّاسِحِينَ وَعِذَةَ الْوَاعِذِينَ. Fear Allah and accept the advice of those who are sincere, give sincere advice. And accept the admonition of those who give admonition. So he's prepared the listener to pay attention. He wants the listener to pay attention. Now that he's got the listener's attention, he then says, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ هَذَا الْعِلْمِ دِينٌ. Know that this knowledge is deen, it is religion. This is similar to the statement of Ibn Sirin, rahimahullah ta'ala, that you will see explained, inshallah ta'ala, later in this conference. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ هَذَا الْعِلْمِ دِينٌ. Know that this knowledge is deen. فَانظُرُوا مَا تَصْنَعُونَ وَعَمَّنْ تَأْخُذُونَ وَبِمَنْ تَقْتَدُونَ وَمَنْ عَلَى دِينِكُمْ تَأْمَنُونَ. He said, know that this knowledge is deen, so therefore look at what you are doing. Look at what you are doing. From whom you are taken, and through whom you are following or imitating, and with whom you are safe, you feel safe about your religion. This is beautiful advice. If you think about the example that we gave yesterday, the parable that we gave yesterday, about the Ahlul Bid'ah being as if like a people with bottles of poison, standing by the pure stream, putting the poison in at different stages as it comes from the mountain and it comes down and turns into a river, or a stream in a river, each one pouring their poison. Keep in mind this picture in your mind as you read this advice. Because what these people are doing with poison that harms the bodies is what Ahlul Bid'ah do with thoughts, ideas, principles, and methodologies which poison the hearts and the minds and the actions. The same, like for like, no difference. So keep in mind this picture in your mind as you read through this advice of Al-Awza'i. So he says, look at what you do, because this knowledge is deen. So look at what you are doing, whom you are taking from, whom you are guiding yourself by, who you feel secure with in your religion. فَإِنَّ أَهْلَ الْبِدْعَةِ كُلُّهُمْ مُبْطِلُونَ أَفَّاكُونَ آثِمُونَ. For indeed the people of bid'ah, all of them are falsifiers, they are liars, and they are sinners. لا يرعبون ولا ينظرون ولا يتقون. Again to say that they are people who don't really care, they don't look, they don't have any taqwa. ولا مع ذلك يؤمنون على تحريف ما تسمعون. And on top of that, they cannot be trusted. They cannot be trusted in making distortion of what you are hearing. You could be hearing an ayah from the Quran. You could be hearing hadith. You could be hearing a statement of a sahabi or from the tabi'een. You cannot feel secure that they are twisting it upon you. You cannot feel secure. وَيَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. They speak about things they don't have knowledge of. فِي سَرْدِ مَا يُنْكِرُونَ. So they speak about things with which they have knowledge, with which they have no knowledge, as a means of rejecting what they reject. وَتَسْدِيدِ مَا يَفْتَرُونَ. And in order to make what they fabricate to appear to be sound. وَاللَّهُ مُحِيطٌ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ. Yet Allah encompasses everything that they are doing. فَكُونُوا لَهُمْ حَذِرِينَ مُتَّهِمِينَ رَافِضِينَ مُجَانِبِينَ. So therefore be cautious with respect to them. Suspect them. Reject them. Avoid them. فَإِنَّ عُلَمَاءَكُمُ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَمَنْ صَلُحَ مِنَ الْمُتَأَخِّرِينَ كَذَلِكَ كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ وَيَأْمُرُونَ. For indeed, the scholars who came before from the first ones, and whoever was rectified from the later ones, this is what they used to do, and this is what they used to command. وَاحْذَرُوا أَن تَكُونُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مُظَاهِرِينَ. And then beware and be cautious that you are someone who supports others against the cause of Allah. You support others against the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلِدِينِهِ هَادِمِينَ, that you support others in destroying His religion. وَلِعُرَاهُ نَاقِدِينَ, and in breaking the handholds of the religion. مُوهِنِينَ, and weakening the handholds. How? بِتَوْقِيرٍ لَهُمْ أَوْ تَعْذِيمٍ, by respecting the likes of these people, by venerating the likes of these people, speaking well of them, and so on and so forth. Meaning that you can destroy the religion by this means. أَشَدُّ مِنْ أَن تَأْخَذُوا عَنْهُمُ الدِّينَ. He means to say, it's a long sentence. What he means to say here, he's saying, beware that you aid against Allah and destroy His religion and cut off its handholds by respecting these people. Because by respecting these people and speaking well of them, this is even more severe than that you actually take knowledge from them. أَشَدُّ مِنْ أَن تَأْخُذُوا عَنْهُمُ الدِّينَ وَتَكُونُوا بِهِمْ مُقْتَدِينَ وَلَهُمْ مُصَدِّقِينَ مُوَادِئِينَ مُؤَالِفِينَ مُعِينِينَ لَهُمْ بِمَا يَصْنَعُونَ عَلَى اسْتِهْوَاءِ مَا يَسْتَحُونَ. He means to say that it is even more severe that you speak well of them, respect them, and so on and so forth, than that you even take knowledge from them. Taking knowledge from them is one thing. But then when you praise them, venerate them, respect them, this is even greater in aiding in the destruction of the religion. Why? Because it leads to the people being confused and deceived about them, and it allows them to spread their poison to greater and greater and greater numbers of people. And then it continues that basically do not aid them in doing what they do of misguiding the people, وَتَأْلِيفِ مَنْ يَتَأَلَّفُونَ, and in winning the love and the affection of the people from the weak Muslims, لِرَأْيِهِمْ الَّذِي يَرَوْنَ, to come to their view which they hold in their religion which they hold. وَكَفَى بِذَلِكَ مُشَارَكَةٌ لَهُمْ فِي مَا يَعْمَلُونَ. Sufficient is that in sharing with them, participating with them in that which they do. So the point being that from this beautiful statement, it summarizes the essence of the way of the Sahaba in standing against the people of falsehood. And so from this we see, number one, it is a great nasiha, a sincere nasiha, a nasiha which is founded upon the Quran and the Sunnah and the amal of the Sahaba. Likewise, he told in this advice that the people of bid'ah are people of fabrication, people of lies, people of sinfulness, people of oppression, people of tahrif, who distort, whom cannot be trusted in misguiding you in your religion. He also explained how to behave with them. What is the ta'amul? To be cautious, to warn, to distance yourself, to make hajar. And also on top of that, he went further and said that just to respect the likes of these people is to aid in the destruction of Islam. And this in fact is something explicitly stated by Fudail bin Iyad rahimahullah ta'ala, when he said, "Man 'azzama sahiba bid'atin faqad a'ana ala hadm al-Islam, wa man tabassama fi wajhi mubtadi'in faqad istakhaffa bima anzala Allahu 'azza wa jalla ala Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wa man zawwaja karimatahu min mubtadi'in faqad qati'a rahimaha, wa man tabi'a janazata mubtadi'in lam yazil fi sakhati Allahi hatta yarji'." Whoever venerated a person of innovation, he has aided in the destruction of Islam. Whoever smiled in the face of an innovator, he has belittled what Allah revealed upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whoever married his daughter to an innovator, he has cut off her ties. And whoever followed the janazah, the funeral of an innovator, he never ceases to be in the anger of Allah up until he returns back from it. So, from all of that, we see that this now is an established sunnah with the imams of the Salaf after the Tabi'een. And this sunnah was followed generation after generation till we reach the time. We see from the best example is the example of Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala. This is a whole lecture series in itself. And then we continue till we come till the time of Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala. And so we'll read a statement here from Ibn Taymiyyah. And he said, وقال بعضهم لأحمد بن حنبل إنه يثقل علي أن أقول فلان كذا وكذا فقال إذا سكت أنت وسكت أنا فمتى يعرف الجاهل الصحيح من السقيم. Ibn Taymiyyah said, some of them said to Ahmad bin Hanbal, it's difficult for me to say so-and-so is such and such, and so-and-so is such and such. So Ahmad bin Hanbal said, if I remain silent and you remain silent, how will the jahil, how will the one who is ignorant, how will he know that which is correct from that which is incorrect? How will he know? If everyone remains quiet, you know that someone is a Shi'i Rafidi, you know someone is a Barelwi, believes Allah is everywhere, believes the saints can rescue them when they are in a calamity. You know this, and you remain silent. This is something you clearly understand. It's not a deep, intricate, detailed matter. It's something that's clear, wadih. The scholars have made this absolutely clear. How can you remain silent? This is deceiving the ignorant person who may not know. Then he continues, وَمِثْلُ أئمة البدع من أهل المقالات المخالفة للكتاب والسنة والعبادات المخالفة للكتاب والسنة. Meaning, likewise, in relation to the people of innovation who bring statements which oppose the book and the sunnah, and who bring actions of worship which oppose the book and the sunnah. فإن بيان حالهم وتحذيرهم وتحذير الأمة منهم واجب باتفاق المسلمين. For indeed, explaining their condition and warning from them and warning the ummah from them is wajib by agreement of the Muslimin. Until it was said to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, الرجل يصوم ويصلي ويعتكف أحب إليك أو يتكلم في أهل البدع. That a man prays, fasts, makes itikaf. Is that more beloved to you than that he speaks about the people of bid'ah? فقال إذا قام وصلى واعتكف فإنما هو لنفسه وإذا تكلم في أهل البدعة فإنما هو للمسلمين هذا أفضل. That when he stands, he prays, he makes itikaf, he's benefiting only himself. That ibadah is for himself. But when he speaks about the people of bid'ah, then it is for the Muslimin, and this is far superior. Then he continues, فَبَيَّنَ أَنَّ نَفْعَ هَذَا عَامٌ لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ فِي دِينِهِمْ مِنْ جِنْسِ الْجِهَادِ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِذْ تَطْهِيرُ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَدِينِهِ وَمِنْهَاجِهِ وَشَرْعِهِ وَدَفْعِ بَغْيِ هَؤُلَاءِ وَعُدْوَانِهِمْ عَلَى ذَلِكَ وَاجِبٌ عَلَى الْكِفَايَةِ بِاتِّفَاقِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. So he explained, meaning Imam Ahmad, that the benefit of this is general to the Muslims in their religion. This is clear, everybody understands. You can stay in your home and pray 2 rak'ahs of Salatul Duha. There's a great reward in this, but that reward is for you. But you can go to the masjid and you can address 100 people or 1,000 people, and you can warn against the local Rafidi or the Barelwi or the Ikhwani or whoever else is present misguiding the Muslimin. And the reward of that is even greater. Why? Because that effect, the effect of that is something that lasts for generations and generations and generations. You understand that? What Imam Ahmad did, the effect of that, we have that here today. So the effect of Imam Ahmad standing against the Jahmiyyah, writing his book Ar-Radwal al-Jahmiyyah, and speaking about Al-Harith al-Muhasibi and Al-Karabisi and so on and so forth, the effect of that is what we are benefiting from right from his time right until this day. But the tahajjud of an individual is for himself. This is why we are not deceived. We are not deceived by the ibadah of a mubtadi'. Then he continues that to purify, that this is benefit of this for the Muslims in their religion, it is from a type of jihad in the path of Allah, because purifying the path of Allah, His religion, His minhaj, His methodology, His legislation, and repelling the oppression of those and their enmity is wajib upon kifaya by agreement of the Muslims. Then he says, وَلَوْلَا مَنْ يُقِيمُهُ اللَّهُ لِدَفْعِ ضَرَرِ هَؤُلَاءِ لَفَسَدَ الدِّينِ وَكَانَ فَسَادُهُ أَعْظَمُ مِنْ فَسَادِ اسْتِيلَاءِ الْعَدُوِّ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْحَرْبِ. If Allah had not established one who would repel the harm of those, the religion would have become corrupt. And the corruption of that would have been greater than the corruption of an enemy from the people of war overtaking the Muslimin. And look at how the scales have been turned. The person who is a person of the Sunnah, he understands that the corruption in the deen that we see that amongst the Muslimin is the Rafidi, Shi'i, Brelwi, Sufi, Mutasawwif, Jahmi, Mu'tazili, Batini, and so on and so forth, Tablighi, Ikhwani. That this disease, that this harm is even greater than if an external enemy was to come and occupy your land and your homes, because that is less. That is less of a corruption. And Ibn Taymiyyah goes on to explain why that is. He says, فَإِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ إِذَا اسْتَوْلُوا لَمْ يُفْسِدُوا الْقُلُوبِ وَمَا فِيهَا مِنَ الدِّينِ إِلَّا تَبْعًا وَأَمَّا أُولَٰئِكَ فَهُمْ يُفْسِدُونَ الْقُلُوبِ ابْتِدَاءً. He says, because those, when an external enemy comes and conquers you and dominates you, they don't really affect your hearts. Why? Because naturally you are averse to them. You know that they are your enemy. And it is only over time that eventually your heart may be affected. But as for these people, the people of bid'ah and dalala, because they come in the name of religion, they corrupt the hearts from the very beginning. Right from the very beginning. Because what they tell you, you think it to be from the deen, and so it becomes corrupt right from the very beginning. So here we see then clearly from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah establishing that obligation and that way of repelling the sunnah and the wisdoms and benefits and the great benefits to the Muslimin in repelling their innovation and their opposition to the sunnah. And we'll finish, inshallah ta'ala. I have many statements. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to go through them all, but just some examples of this methodology amongst the Salaf. Al-Dhahabi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said about Wasil bin Ata, kana min ajladil mu'tazila. He spoke about Wasil bin Ata because the Salaf spoke about him. He was from the core of the Mu'tazila. Ibn Abi Du'ad, from those who were in the time of Imam Ahmad, he said, Jahmiyun Baghid. Hateful Jahmi. Hateful Jahmi. Likewise, we see that Abu Idris al-Khawlani, he said, Ala inna Aba Jamila la yu'minu bil qadar fala tujalisuhu. He said, indeed, Abu Jamila does not believe in al-qadar, do not sit with him. This again, we're seeing the manhaj, the refutation of the opposer in action, being inherited by the Salaf from those who came before them. Abu Salih al-Farra, he said, I mentioned to Yusuf bin Asbat from Waqi' something to do with the tribulations. And so, Waqi', he said, this man, he's speaking about a certain man, who is Al-Hasan bin Hay, who is from the Khawarij. This man, he simply held the view that you can rebel against the rulers. Just for holding this view, Waqi' said, this man, he resembles his teacher. And he's speaking to Yusuf bin Asbat. So Yusuf said, this man said to Yusuf, don't you fear that this is backbiting? Are you speaking about this man, Al-Hasan bin Hay? So he said, Lima ya ahmaq. Why is this so fool? I am better to those people than their fathers and their mothers, because I prohibit the people from acting upon that which has been innovated, so that they follow them and their burdens become increased upon them, which would be more harmful upon them. So the likes of these statements are very many. It's really just to establish the fact that this is the sunnah of the Messenger and the Khulafa and the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and the Imams of the Salaf in every age up until we reach this time of ours. And we'll conclude our lecture just by mentioning two statements from Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzan, Hafidhullah Ta'ala. And so in the first of them he's asked, is it obligatory upon the scholars to explain to the youth and to the general folk the danger of at-tahazzub, at-tafarruq, and the jama'at. Because this is the greatest tribulation we face in the 20th century and the 21st century. The jama'at, the political jama'at who have come claiming to work for Islam, bringing with them all the poisonous principles which have corrupted the minds of many people, even those who were from the people of knowledge within Salafiyah, as Sheikh Rabi mentioned yesterday. So he says, Na'am, yes, it is obligatory to warn from the danger of tahazzub and of dividing and splitting, so that the people may be upon basira, so that the people are clear, because even the general people can be deceived. How many people from the general folk have been deceived by some of the jama'at because they think they are upon the truth? So therefore it is necessary that we explain to the people, the students and the common people, the danger of the groups and the parties and the sects. Because if they remain silent, then the people will say, well, the scholars knew and they kept silent, and so this means that it must be okay. And so misguidance will enter the common people from this angle. So therefore it is a must to explain that when any of these affairs occur, that we explain these affairs. And the danger upon the common people is much more than it is upon the students. Because the awam, the common people, when they see the scholars are silent, they think that this must be correct and this must be true. And likewise, he was asked a question, is warning from the methodologies which oppose the manhaj of the Salaf wajib? Is it wajib? And he said, Na'am yajib an nuhadhir min al-manahij al-mukhalifa limanhaj al-Salaf. Hada min al-nasihati lillah wa li kitabihi wa li rasulihi wa li a'immat al-muslimin wa 'ammatihim. Yes, it is obligatory that we warn from the opposing methodologies which oppose the way of the Salaf. This is from sincerity of purpose to Allah, to His book, to His messenger, to the leaders of the Muslims, and to His general folk. This is the understanding of the scholars. That when an alim engages in refuting the mukhalif, this is from an-nasiha lillah wa li kitabihi wa li rasulihi wa li a'immat al-muslimin wa li a'ammatihim. That this is from sincere advice, concern for the ummah. And we should not be deceived by the propaganda and the rhetoric of the Hizbiyin who wish to portray the person who clarifies the sunnah and says, this is the path, that you are unjust, you are oppressive, you are backbiting, you are dividing, you are splitting, you are weakening. No, this is twisting the realities the other way around. Completely the other way around. It is you people who are dividing, splitting, weakening with your innovations and oppositions and principles and methodologies. And it is we who are the muslihun, who are correcting and rectifying. So do not be deceived by this propaganda. Put this action, this noble action of refuting the mukhalif in its proper context. It is rahmah, ra'fa, nasiha, hirs for the ummah. This is how it is. Then he continues, نُحَذِّرْ مِنْ أَهْلِ الشُّرُورِ ونحذر من المناهج المخالفة لمنهج الإسلام ونبين مضار هذه الأمور للناس ونحثهم على التمسك بالكتاب والسنة. هذا واجب. We warn from the evils, we warn from the opposing methodologies to Islam, we explain the harms of these affairs to the people, and we encourage them to stick to the book of Allah and the Sunnah. This is wajib. ولكن هذا من شؤون أهل العلم الذين يجب أن يتدخلوا في هذا الأمر وأن يوجهوه للناس بالطريقة اللائقة المشروعة الناجحة بإذن الله. But this affair is from the affairs of the people of knowledge. It is obligatory upon them to enter into this affair and to explain to the people in an appropriate, legislated, appropriate way by the permission of Allah. And so therefore we follow our ulama, we follow our scholars of this time in conveying their statements and their refutations and their clarifications out of sincerity to Allah and His book and His messenger and the leaders of the Muslims and to the common folk. So with this we hope, inshallah ta'ala, that the mighty obligation of refuting the opposer has been established, and that it is from the fundamental aspect of our religion, because it is connected to how knowledge is acquired and how it is conveyed. And if this issue of acquiring knowledge and conveying knowledge is not protected, then the deen of Islam would be just like the deen of the Yahud and the Nasara and those who came before, tahrif and tabdeel. And so this is from the greatest affairs of the religion. And of course there are some tafasil, there are some details that go into this about, issues of, about who engages in this and tabdeel and so on and so forth. And these are the details that have been discussed time and time again. But in this lecture, the issue was just really to put this action into its proper context and to peel the layers of propaganda away that the Hizbiyin have put in order to hinder the people from appreciating and acknowledging this great and mighty principle of our religion. And with that, we'll conclude. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.